balance where there's a lot of in-person meetups without being as disruptive as that everybody moves to Silicon Valley for 3 months with.
That is fantastic. Should we go to audience questions?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, send them to the chat and we will select the best questions. There was a question that I saw before that I think is pretty important because it's one of those things that we need to take off the table immediately. Can we apply to Marcela is asking this, can we apply to Ycombinator with our prototype and the co-founders presenting with subtitles because our English is not that advanced? So can they?
Well, what would you say there, Jared? What if the English is still a problem?
I think I'd be interested in your guys' take on this. Like, I think probably to do YC at least and get a lot out of it, probably at least one founder on your team has to speak at least conversational English. Yeah. You certainly don't need to have perfect English. That's totally like, we don't care, but we don't really have we don't have like a fully Spanish language translated version of the program. So I think if nobody speaks any English on the founding team, I think that would be rough. Does that
my humble perspective is that you are going to have a very hard time succeeding in technology if you don't have conversational English. So it's not so much about YC, but about the fact that this is just a thing that you need for eventually, if you do this very, very, very well, if as a startup you grow a lot, you're going to start meeting with people at such high levels that English is the only common language. The height to which you can aspire in Spanish is lower than the height of the worldwide market. And this includes fundraising, partnerships, mergers, stuff like that. And the other reality is that it's not that hard. I mean, it is hard. Of course, it's hard, but it's not that hard. If you commit yourself for 3 months, you're going to be able to have conversational English. And learning conversational English is definitely not going to be the hardest thing that you will have to learn to make a startup succeed.
I was about to say that English is going to be a problem, but it's not going to be the hardest problem you're going to solve. So learn English, take some courses, do the hard work, start reading in English, like try to switch your mentality, like start reading startup material in English, start participating in English communities. In Platzi, we have a startup community, and something that is super important, we do part of that community in English, and it's a very supportive ecosystem where we are extremely kind to people learning. So it's not going to be the kind of place where they tell you, it's like, oh, that's bad English, don't do that. But quite the opposite. It's like, oh, you better do this, try to use this, rephrase that. And I feel like those communities are super important. But learn English, you're going to need it. And we have English courses as well in Platzi. We really care about that. I feel like
Platzi.com/academy.
I feel like you need to learn technical skills, programming, and even the basics. And you need to learn a conversational English. Do the effort. And if one of your co-founders, it's amazing, but it's lacking English, well, time to put some pressure into it, because it's a problem that you can fix with time and good energy.
Here's another great question from Alejandro Terán. How do Ycombinator, how do they measure a great founding team?
Yeah, absolutely. So some of the things we look for are you executing on your idea? And by executing on your idea, I mean like doing stuff and making it happen. Like a lot of founders have ideas and they're waiting for permission to go pursue their idea. We like founders that aren't waiting for permission. They're chasing their idea with or without YC. They're building their product, they're launching it, they're getting users, they're starting to charge for their product, they're making fast progress, they quit their job to go work on it full time. You know, all of those are sort of signs to us that this is a thing that you're chasing, because like Christian and Freddie were saying, like doing a startup is hard, and you need to like, if you're not already going all in on your startup and chasing it aggressively, then it's probably not going to work out. So we want to see founders that are like chasing it really aggressively at the time that they apply to us. And other things that we look for founders that really understand their users and really care a lot about the problem that they're working on. Like Christian, Freddie, how many users did you guys have when you applied to YC? Oh, you guys are pretty far along.
Thousands.
Thousands, yeah. And like you were super deep with your users because you talked to them all the time because you were teaching them classes. And so you understood them really well. You understood their problems. You understood why they were signing up for your service. You knew why they were paying you. Like that is the leading indicator of a successful company is founders that really understand their users and care a lot about the problem that they're working
on. And it doesn't change. I was going to say it doesn't change. Part of our full-time job now is talking to users. We still do it a lot through social networks, a lot through our platform, WhatsApp, Telegram groups. I really like Freddie does this exercise that people feel like it's his hobby, but it's kind of like hobby and job. Freddie answers questions through Instagram every weekend, and I've seen him. I've been out on a weekend trying to relax. It's like Freddie, no work, and he was like, I'm just gonna do one thing. And then he's like, ask me anything about X course. And he was like, oh, I got 1,000 messages. Okay, perfect. I'm going to need 2 hours. And it might seem funny, but it's not only it's a disruptive activity, it's something that you do because you have to care. And that's also something that we find when we're looking for great students that want to build startups. Just talk to your in our case, talk to our students. In the case of any company, talk to your users. And that's actually the YC mantra. So it really helped, like build something that your users want. And we always remember that. And it was something that made us very compatible.
Yeah, I don't want to dwell too much into this one. Just reiterate, talk to your users. There's nothing that replicates talking to users. Like every single company that I've seen that started with a market study instead of talking to users didn't work. It's just talk to users. There's nothing like, how do I talk to users like this? Hi, what's up? So what's your problem? Why did you decided to use Platzi? And how did you discover it? Just be authentically curious. That's it. There's no structure. I mean, there are structures, there are things, but really just talk to users. And I'm like, but I don't know how to talk to people. That's a different problem that I cannot help with. But in general, just talk to users. Talk to users and you'll be fine, definitely. There's another question here that I think it's fantastic. Oh, there are people that like my Freddie Q&A weekends. Thank you. These are my best students. Thank you so much. All right. This is a good one. Camilo Ortiz. Is it necessary to have generated income with the startup to be able to apply to Ycombinator?
Yeah, so I saw a few versions of this question, so I'll try and take them all at once. So it's like really common question we get, like, hey, what stage should I be at when I apply to YC? Am I too early? Am I too late? And like basically, my best answer to this is what Freddie and Christian were saying earlier, which is like, just do it. Like, there's really no downside to applying to YC. You just go online and you fill out an application. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes about an hour. The questions on the application are questions that you kind of need to think about for your company anyway, like how am I going to grow and how will I get users and how will I make money? Those are all like good questions that you kind of have to answer anyway. So just do it. YC funds companies at lots of different stages. So like Platzi, you guys were already making like $1 million a year when we funded.
We were going to make $1 million that year, and then we made it.
Okay, yeah. So we fund some companies like Platzi that were making like $1 million a year. When we funded Rappi, they were pretty far along. They had like over 100 employees already. But we also fund a lot of companies that have no users and are unlaunched and are just founders with an idea and possibly a prototype. That's probably a quarter to a third of the companies we fund are unlaunched companies that have written little or no code. A lot of founders think like, oh, YC only funds companies that are really far along. And that's not true. We fund a lot of companies really early as well.
Quick question from you, Jared, about companies that you fund. What are the rules right now? When we started, you needed to be incorporated in Delaware. What's going on with Latin America? Can I have a business in Mexico and apply to YC? Can I have a business in Cuba and apply to YC? What are the rules and what are the limitations to get the funding and be part of the program?
Yeah, so you can be based anywhere in the world. You can have a business be based anywhere in the world. I saw somebody ask whether we can fund companies in Venezuela. The answer is yes. We funded a few. So you can be anywhere in the world. We don't care what your corporate structure is right now, or if you've incorporated a company or not, or if you've incorporated, how you've incorporated. We don't care. That's all just like legal details. Who cares? We care whether you have a great business and you understand your users. That's the only thing that we think about in deciding who to fund. If you have incorporated a company outside of the US, we will probably need to basically change around the legal structure to give you a US company as long with a Mexican company or a Colombian company, so to make basically the mechanics work. But it's not really something that you need to worry about if you're applying to YC. Just apply to YC, and if you get in, we have an amazing team of lawyers that will help you to figure that out.
How many lawyers
are scary? They're very good.
When we worked with you guys, there was 2 lawyers, Caroline and John. Like how has that also how is the YC team scaled? Because it's not only 100 companies anymore. So how many partners? What can you tell us a little bit about the backbone running YC?
So, we always tell our companies that you should do an astonishing amount with a team that is so small that people can't believe that you've accomplished that much with such a small team, rather than the opposite. You should impress people with how small your team is rather than how large your team is. And I think YC has done a pretty good job of taking that advice, where we've managed to do a lot with a pretty small team. So actually YC itself is only about 75 full-time employees, which is way less than Platzi. How many full-time employees are at Platzi now?
Now I feel a little bit ashamed. We have 250.
Yeah.
So
we're gonna have.
But we have been leaving that advice too hard, like having the least amount of people with the maximum amount of results. Yes.
I believe it. Yeah.
Hey, there's a question that is kind of fantastic, which is, how have you managed to maintain the quality of the program even though batches are now bigger?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you guys were in winter 15, how many companies were in your batch?
110.
110. Yeah. So the most recent batch of YC had over 400 companies. So it's grown by 4 times the size. And people ask us, like, how, does that mean that the companies are worse because you're funding more? And the answer is no. Actually, the companies are better. The average quality of a company in YC now is higher than it was in winter 15. And the reason that's possible is because more and more companies are applying to YC now. So the last batch had over 20,000 applications. The acceptance rate is only about 2%, which is lower than the acceptance rate for like Harvard. When YC partners worry about YC size, our concern is always the opposite. We always worry that we're not big enough, that in the 98% of companies that we didn't accept, that there could be great companies out there that we just we're too skeptical of. And so our concern is the opposite of the concern that most founders have. We think YC should be as big as it possibly can be, because the more companies we fund, the more companies we can give the same opportunity that the Platzi founders had, the more entrepreneurs we can help on their journey. And so we want to fund as many companies at YC as we possibly can.
There's a bunch of small questions that I want to get out of the way really fast. There was a question asking if YC invests in competitors, or if I'm doing a startup that competes with another one, can I apply to YC? The answer is yes, of course. Early stage, that doesn't matter. You know how many Platzis are there at YC? More than I like, more than I enjoy. But I keep it quiet into my heart. So you can definitely do it. We don't have to talk about this right now, Jared, but let's talk about it later. Now, another question that someone asked, can I apply with a no-code project that is going well? If it's going well, definitely apply. No code, at the end of the day, is code that somebody else did. So it's fine. It doesn't matter. Just do it. Go for it. Enjoy it. And there was this question that I think that I want to ask Jared. Do you find companies that make things like robot manufacturing, like rockets, like SpaceX, companies that are doing things in the orbit? And I think that the answer will surprise you.
Yeah, so we love companies like that. Actually, I have a little show and tell. So this is a Lego model of a plane, which is the real plane is made by a YC company called Boom, and they are building the first supersonic jet since the Concorde. And this is a scale model of their first prototype called the XV. This plane, so we funded Boom in 2016, just about a year after Platzi, and they are going to test fly their plane past the sound barrier this year. That's pretty crazy. That was a YC company.
Wow. I have a follow-up question with Boom. Where do I get the Lego sets? Because now I got excited about it.
I'll send you the link.
That was actually pretty cool. I love Boom. And just so you know, in my batch, there was a guy 3D printing rocket nozzles. There was a guy whose company is still on, building cancer. It was like it was a chemical compound that allowed cancer treatment to reach the brain, to cross the blood-brain barrier, and they're doing amazingly. There was another guy doing a thing with mice that I don't want to say out loud, but basically allowed to test like 100 different types of cancer treatments to a specific type of cancer. There was another guy building the AWS of life sciences laboratories, like laboratories for drug testing and stuff like that. I saw a jetpack once. I saw a company doing super crazy tuna, like things that taste like tuna from plant-based plants. Plant-based tuna is what I'm trying to say.
There's something that we need to acknowledge, and is that sometimes YC feels like science fiction in real life. Like sometimes you go to demo day and you're like, oh my God, someone's building that? Wow, that's amazing.
If you get into YC, you will face true imposter syndrome really fast.
Jared, I had a question from you there. How can we encourage, and probably it's a hard question, but let's try it anyway. How can we encourage more people in Latin America or with a Latinx background to build hard tech like that? How do I create the Latin American boom that's going to be faster than the US boom? I don't know. What would you recommend us doing?
Totally. Well, I think you guys should start a course, how to start a hard tech company.
All right.
That's a good one.
But actually, I think like the biggest reason why more founders don't do hard tech companies is because it sounds too hard. Like it even has hard in the name. Is like basically they psych themselves out. They're just like, well, maybe I could build a website, but I couldn't build something like a supersonic jet or like a cancer-killing robot. That just sounds impossible. And like actually, when you work with these hard tech companies, what you realize is that their founders are just people too. They're not like superheroes, you know, and they figured out how to do it just the same way you would, going to Google, researching it, reading books, talking to people, figuring it out. And then at the end of the day, like every company is hard in its own way. Hard tech companies are just hard in a different way. They're not actually any harder to start. So if you know, like Blake, the guy who started Boom, he had exactly zero background in aerospace engineering. He was a software programmer. And he was just obsessed with the idea of like building a supersonic jet. And so he read a lot of books on how to build airplanes, and he taught himself how to do it. So like, if he can do that, why can't you?
This is very similar to the story of Cruz. The guys that did Cruz, I'm not sure if you know Cruz. Cruz is the company that was acquired by General Motors. For you Latin Americans, General Motors is Chevrolet. So they were acquired, and what they do is that they do self-driving for any kind of car. And the way that they started is that they connected a webcam to an Arduino and a Raspberry Pi to identify stoplights. That's all they did. And eventually they built the robotic system and everything else, and they created a multi-billion-dollar company. That is amazing. This is a short way to say to all of you that we are announcing that Platzi is going to launch a computational fluid dynamics course and an introduction to modern compression flow in the next couple of months. Otherwise,
Our tech course.
I'll get an
coming.
email from Michael Seibel. There's
I
a
would
question,
also,
Beto.
before that, I would also, I want also to advise a lot of you here probably are just thinking about starting a company. I know we said, just do it, just apply with your startup. But I'm pretty sure that a lot of people here are just considering, should I work at a startup? Should I start a startup? I believe that connecting yourself with a startup is super important. Ask for a job in a startup that you like if you're not sure about what to do next. Apply to Boom. If you like the Legos, it's like, why not? I want to hear that someone saw this Zoom, applied to Boom, and it's now an engineer working with them. We want to tell your story. We're going to help you. We're going to encourage that to happen. So try to connect. And something that we sometimes don't do in Latin America is to ask. We don't send that email. We don't send that tweet. We just believe like that's not for us. And I want to kill that misconception because it's not true. We can all do it there. There's great talent from Latin America working in Airbnb, in Dropbox. There are Spanish-speaking great developers that had worked for YC. YC had hired, and of course, Platzi will hire the best of you. So also apply to us. Shameless self ad, but apply. And you don't really need to start a new company to be part of the YC network. You can also work for a company that is already part of the network.
Great point.
Someone told me something that I truly believe in. Nowhere in the world a dollar works harder than in a tech company. So if what you want to do is grow, a tech company, specifically startup, is the way to do it. If you don't feel that you're ready, but but the truth is that nobody feels that they're ready. Nobody. It's just some people decide to jump. That's it. Beto has this question. Is there a market in which Ycombinator will like to see more companies?
A market like a country?
Let's say both countries and verticals.
Yeah. So in terms of countries, like, we don't really care. Like Freddie and Christian were saying, like, we sort of see Latin America as one big market. And so unlike other investors, maybe who care, who think a lot about like different, I don't know, regional questions, we just like don't really care where founders are from. It's never been a factor for us in deciding what companies to accept. I think that's part of why we were so early funding companies in Latin America. I think that's a really sort of good attribute of YC, is that we just don't really care a lot about that. We just really want to fund great founders who are working on interesting stuff, and where they're from is not important to us.
What about verticals?
Everywhere. And what verticals? So we got a bunch of questions from founders asking, like, if we fund crypto companies. So the answer is definitely we fund crypto companies. Coinbase, which if you're into crypto, you're familiar with, is a YC company. And we funded dozens and dozens of crypto companies since then. I'm sure we funded some in Latin America. I'd have to think about the names. We would love to see... Sorry?
I was going to say Dollar App went through the program. Funny enough, they're a crypto company called Dollar App, but everything's valid. so yeah, you have founded YC crypto companies, and the crypto community is happening pretty fast. What's the next question, Freddie?
What do you think of starting a company in a sector where there are many competitors?
So actually, a lot of YC companies that are successful were started in sectors where there already were a lot of competitors. Do you guys know Dropbox? Dropbox is a file storage company. They were like the 15th file storage company to launch or something. Stripe, the payments processing company, Stripe was like the 25th payments processing company to launch. But the thing about Dropbox and Stripe is that even though they had a very competitive market, they did have a genuine, unique insight for at least one thing that they could do significantly better than all the other companies did. And I think that was really critical, is they didn't just launch the same thing that all the other companies were doing. They had a unique twist, like a new insight. And so I think if you're launching something in a very competitive space, you need to have a unique insight. If you're literally doing the same thing that all the other companies are doing, it will be difficult to break it.
I agree wholeheartedly with Jared, and I would like to add something, because from my very Latin American perspective, I know that a lot of people, when they ask this question, they want to clone Facebook, clone Rappi, clone TikTok, or something like this. And here's the bottom line: a lot of people that see a social network or a delivery app succeeding, or let's say just randomly an education a startup succeeding, and they want to replicate that success because they admire something like that, they think, if I do what they do a little bit better, I will succeed. You will not, because people have a hard time changing, and there's something about the brand and the goodwill of the brand that is very hard to replicate. A lot of people immediately, when they think about habits, music, they go to Spotify. When they think meetings, they go to Zoom. You need to be 10x better, or at the very least, significantly better. Hangouts is free. Google Hangouts, now Google Meet, is free. And Zoom is a multi-billion-dollar company of a paid product because it's significantly better than Google Meet. That's where you should go. You don't have to be excellent at everything. You just have to be better at a team, and you will succeed. I'm pretty sure of that. And by the way, there are many questions that follow more or less this structure. My company is blah, blah, blah. Should I apply? To all of those, the answer is yes. To all of those, the answer is yes. You should definitely. Applying for Ycombinator is free. It's definitely free. So far, they haven't charged for it, and I don't think that they will. Not only it's free, it's a beautiful learning exercise, as Christian said. If you get rejected, there's no consequences. And this is, I think, this should be in the Ycombinator website. There's no consequences to applying and being rejected. You can apply as many times as you want. Ycombinator has a very benevolent system, I don't know how else to characterize it, in which they assume the best of you, and they will always see you with renewed eyes. Not to go into a lot of detail, but they will always see you with renewed eyes. So you can apply 7 times. I have a friend that has applied. How many times has Kamal applied, Christian? Like 12?
Yes, and we will continue supporting her. We love her.
Always
we love
support her. Yeah.
Something important also to mention. Recommendations are very important for YC, and we love to recommend companies. We do like to meet the companies. Like, we don't do recommendations as a blank check. We talk to people at least for a while. We learn about their process. We learn about it. But no, and that's not only Freddie and Christian. There's a lot of founders in Latin America willing to give you 15 minutes to improve your business and to do a mock-up interview, which is basically like a Zoom call when we try to ask you questions and to get you ready. We cannot guarantee that's a job of YC, but there's a big support network, and we actually want more companies in YC. Everyone wants more companies in YC for Latin America. It's important for the ecosystem, and it's happy. We're happy that it's happening.
You need to understand that this is a selfish thing. If we have more companies, more startups in Latin America, the economy grows. Less people are in poverty. More people are consumers. More people are getting jobs. More startups need talent, so we get more students, and everybody wins. The tech industry is very different from any other industries that we're used to in Latin America. In Latin America, we're used to extraction companies that take natural resources, companies that just do services that don't scale. So we think this is a zero-sum game, but technology is a post-scarcity vertical. If you create software, you can serve 100,000 people or 100 million people with the same software with virtually zero marginal cost, which means that when a startup grows, the pie grows. So it definitely makes sense for you to grow. And I know that we're running out of time, but I want to answer a question that Matthias asked. Is there a space for new educational technology platforms in Latin America? Jared, it's particularly specialized in education, but I want to just rapidly answer this question in my way, but I would also love to understand Jared's perspective. The answer is obviously yes. And what you need to understand is what's special about Latin America. It's 650 million people, of which only 13% of people are able to go to college, which means that 87% of people will have to live their lives with secondary education. According to the World Bank, 270 million people are in the age bracket to look for higher education. Of those 270 million people, 235 million will only have a high school diploma. Only 6% of Latin Americans speak conversational English. And at the same time, there is an explosion of remote job opportunities for people that know technology. And there's also another explosion, which is an explosion of money in startups. Last year, $4 billion were invested in Latin America. This year is going to be 19 billion. It's amazing. And even when you take those startups away, we're in the same time zone as the US and Canada, the largest consumer market in the world. There's no reason why Latin America shouldn't succeed. We should be an amazing talent superpower. We are doing our best at Platzi, but we will definitely not be enough. If we all pull together our resources to make this happen, not only can we create a lot of wealth for everybody, and every single box in this Zoom call could be a millionaire or higher, but also we can break the cycle of poverty of Latin America, which no one has been able to do. This is a region where it takes 10 generations to get out of poverty. We can break it in one just by making the right educational products. So hopefully we'll make it happen together.
Freddie, I love that. That is the perfect answer to end on. Wow.
I didn't mean it for that, but thank you very much.
Jared,
Christian?
Jared, rest of the YC team and everyone, like, please apply to YC, start companies or work at startups. And more importantly, let's change Latin America. Working in tech really creates progress, and we believe in that from the bottom of our heart. And we believe that that's why we chose this path, and that's why we're building what we're building. And I want to hear more stories, and I want to help and support more founders. And I'm pretty sure that there will come better founders than us, because Latin America has a lot to build. So build companies, start businesses, and apply to YC. And look how nice Jared is, and all the partners from YC are like that. So that's the best perk. You get to meet amazing people with great stories, and you just become part of a great community.
And now the moment of send with Jared Friedman.
Thank you, guys. This was awesome. I love doing this talk with you two. You guys are amazing.
Jared, remember, in a couple of years, we're going to be doing this session in Spanish with you. So you better start training yourself.
Do you guys offer Spanish courses?
We do, actually, and Portuguese.
Yeah. We'll get you. We'll get you some.
Jared, thank you for letting us help you with this. It's a privilege. Thank you so much.
And thanks, guys, and thanks to everybody who joined, and thanks to everybody who asked the great questions as well.
Take care.
Hope to get to meet you all at some point.
I'll see you everyone at Platzi, at Twitter, and everywhere. Just remember, Freddie answers questions for a living on the weekend. So go follow him on Instagram.
Apply.ycombinator.com. That's it. Apply.ycombinator.com. Llenemos Ycombinator de gente que habla español y confundamos mucho a Jared Friedman. Ese es mi único objetivo para el 2021. Bye.
Bye bye. Que la pasen lindo. Salud.